Here is a summary of what has happened so far. In the current chapter of the adventure, Gillig the Otter, while searching for a way into Cotir Castle from an abandoned otter's den, had hit a target high up on the wall with his sling. He had heard a thump coming from the short tunnel nearby. Chapter 2. Meet Gloomer. A few days previously, the destroyer from Cotir was beaten. Stormfin had finally won. Or had he? Deep within the cold, dark depths of the River Moss, and unknown to the triumphant Stormfin, the sorely wounded Gloomer quickly squirmed into a tight crevice in the rocky walls of the bank. Instinctively huddling into it to escape the fury of Stormfin, he pushed into the rough, narrow, water-filled tunnel, one just large enough for him, but not the gigantic pike. Safe from the gigantic pike, Gloomer swam up the narrow hollow until he broke through the water with a heaving gasp. Each deep breath echoed harsh against the surrounding stone, informing him that he was in a small cavern. The smells of his fur soaked in blood intruded into his nostrils, and the agony of his legs was more than the beast could bear. His vision was blurred, unable to distinguish anything aside from the light and darkness from the faint phosphorescent glows that filled the room. The room reeled as Gloomer attempted to center himself while he floated in the water. With all his might, he desperately began to search for a way out. Gloomer was floating in some water. Now you play as Gloomer the Great Rat. He is yours to command as you work to rescue him from the cave. He was floating at the surface in a pool of water within a small, faintly glowing cave. Gloomer could see the glow all around him. Everything else was dim and fuzzy to the nearly blind Great Rat. Gloomer swam around and bumped into a ledge just at head height. The accomplishment sound as Gloomer is a bit different. Gloomer was floating in some water. Gloomer winced in frustration as he slowly paddled forward. He floundered through the water as his tail was no longer able to aid his balance. Within a paw's length of Gloomer, the top of his head bumped into a solid ledge. Exerting all his strength, the exhausted fighter heaved himself onto the rock ledge. Gloomer's nose twitched. The smell of several serpents wafted from the ledge into his nostrils. The Great Rat could feel the many vibrations in the rock as it slithered closer to him. The fearsome monster quickly attacked the water snake. Though the savage was greatly weakened after his battle with Stormfin, the snake was no match for the Great Rat. He took a mighty swipe at the large snake, forcing it to retreat to the wall. Sounds of younger hisses filled his ears, and without regard to his wounds, the wrath of the maddened beast was upon them. Silence fell upon the cavern. Finally, exhausting the last of his strength, Gloomer fell into a deep sleep. When he awoke, he found his wounds had only just begun to heal. Achingly, he pulled himself up from the ground. Gloomer was on a rock ledge. Gloomer smelt the lingering odors of snake and Stormfin. After countless seasons swimming beneath Kotir, Gloomer had felt every piece of his lake, but this cave was unfamiliar to the blind rat. Gloomer was on a rock ledge. Gloomer ran his tattered paws around the floor. The solid rock was covered in mud, and the pool of water rested in the center of the cave. Feeling around the sides of the air bubble cave, he felt a hard rock wall with many roots growing from it. One spot, though, was soft and spongy. Gloomer felt water dripping on him. Gloomer was on a rock ledge. Gloomer let out a mighty howl. Gloomer felt water dripping on him. The enraged Gloomer swiped about ferociously. The water rat sensed the murky waters of Katir Cavern was near, but the cave stone wall stood between him and his home. Gloomer was on a rock ledge. Gloomer grabbed the longest root and gnawed on it until it came off in his paws. Oddly, the root tasted like a carrot, but was a bit more flexible. Again and again, the paranoid great rat checked to see that the root was still with him. Gloomer was on a rock ledge. Gloomer snuffled and clawed as he dug with his paws into the dense material of the soft, spongy area. The savage had burrowed out a small tunnel opening. At the very tips of his claws, he felt a plug of material remain, further than his paws could reach. Gloomer sensed his salvation was near, but how to proceed? The great rat was stumped. Gloomer felt water dripping on him. Gloomer was on a rock ledge. He had an idea, but decided that would not accomplish anything. The great rat thrust his paws into the hole he had created, but they were too short to dig any further. Gloomer shook the dirt from his claws. Without something sturdy to dig with, the killer could burrow no further. Gloomer was on a rock ledge. He tried to take something, but he was not able to get it. Gloomer drank some water. Gloomer was on a rock ledge. The evil great rat poked and dug deep into the material with the root. With a whoosh, the root was pulled from Gloomer's grip, going through the matted material into the empty space beyond. As the plug in the wall fell apart, the river moss, with all the speed of a hare warrior chasing vile vermin, flooded up into the previously sealed cave. The water seized the bulk of the great rat and pressed him into the newly created tunnel. Suddenly, he stopped. His enormous body was too wide to go completely through it. Gloomer was stuck like a cork in a bottleneck. Behind him, the force of the river moss pushed on him, and in front of him was pure darkness. Gloomer squirmed, shook, wiggled, jiggled, and twisted as best his bulk would allow. Roaring like an enraged badger, the great force of the river moss suddenly launched Gloomer down the winding dark tunnel. Minutes passed as his body tumbled, then, shot like an arrow from a squirrel's bow, he was suddenly hurtling through the air. With a great splash, the giant landed into the familiar waters of the underground lake beneath Cotir Keep. Behind Gloomer, a new small waterfall had appeared in the wall of the cavern. Its waters fell down into the lake in an endless torrent. Gloomer surfaced with water dripping from his ugly bulk. His monstrous head had appeared from the depths like the worst kind of vision from a bad dream. As he inhaled deeply, his nostrils were filled with the scent of fresh meat. The killer rat mindlessly followed the scent and swam forward towards the smell of a live, tasty otter. A badger lord appeared in Gillig's thoughts, his soft voice like the whisper of an owl's wing-beat in the night sky, proclaiming that you have earned the achievement title of Daydream Crasher.